This episode is sponsored by DreamHost, web hosting with purpose. Visit dreamhost.com/Climify to sign up for a hosting plan today. I'm Eric Benson, the host of Climify, and I've been a satisfied DreamHost user since 2006. And I'm not the only one who enjoys DreamHost. They are PC Mag's Editor's Choice winner 5 years in a row. I use DreamHost because they're affordable, they care about the planet, they're easy to use, and have fantastic customer service. In fact, it's 24/7. I can't tell you how many times I've messed up the back end of my WordPress site, only to be saved by a DreamHost technician within the next 15 minutes or less. They're always available on chat. They send me links to tutorials, but most often just fix the site themselves. And then, voila, it's back up within a few minutes. DreamHost customer service is seriously the best. Because I care about the planet, I also want a hosting service that does too. DreamHost has improved on their corporate sustainability since I joined up 16 years ago. Currently, they get their electricity from renewable sources, use high-efficiency cooling infrastructure, utilize power-efficient processors, and partner with in-state clean wind programs. I also love how DreamHost is employee-owned and have office sustainability initiatives. DreamHost is committed to their employees and to their customers. Plus, their affiliate program is really cool. You can earn $15 to $200 in commission just for referring a friend who sets up a new account. Even better, DreamHost has no limits on how many people you refer to the program. To sign up as a DreamHost affiliate, go to dreamhost.com/affiliates. That's dreamhost.com/affiliates. And just click the sign up today button. And if you want to learn more about their sustainability initiatives, head to dreamhost.com and click on the green hosting link on the bottom.
Welcome to Climify, the podcast that connects climate scientists and design educators together so that we can help combat our climate crisis in our classrooms. The discussions on this program are geared to help you climify your syllabi to assign projects that not only teach design fundamentals, but also can have a positive impact on our climate.
My name is Sadeen Al Halabi. I'm a senior in sustainable design at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I grew up in Amman, Jordan, that's the capital, and I'm a Saudi citizen. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name.
My name is Dziaba. I am a junior at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in sustainable design and graphic design. I'm from Buffalo Grove, which is a suburb of Chicago. If you want to learn more about me, you can check out my LinkedIn, which is under my name.
I had this idea for close to a year now to interview design students about their education and how they see their future. As this season has progressed, I felt even more strongly that this needed to be done. So I'll be bringing you not only this informative interview with Sadeen and Adam, but a second one next week, where Mark O'Brien from the Climate Designers interviews 4 of his undergraduate students. I hope you listen in to what they have to say, as I believe it'll help us, design educators, do a better job in the classroom, and in turn, empower our students to be a force for positive social change. Sadeen, Adam, welcome to Climify. I see you every day in class, but it's nice to have you here on my show. And I'm happy that you had an hour from what you could take away from your very busy student life to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring both of you on because I think you both have some good insights into the experience of being a sustainable design major, but also just 2 students who are, care about the future and want to have an education that helps prepare you to be active in making a better world. So as a design educator, we think we know what we're doing, but maybe we don't. And so getting student input on how everything is going, I think is pretty useful. We need to keep our egos in check, probably as professors. So that's what I'm doing today. And I'm really curious about why you chose University of Illinois and the sustainable design major and what motivated you to do that.
So yeah, as I said, I'm an international student, coming to the US for the second time ever in my life. Um, I chose the University of Illinois because originally I had applied for industrial design, because I just saw that this school was great in that field. Um, and then like 1 year in, I started seeing flyers being posted everywhere, and like people are talking about this new major called sustainable design. And I don't know, it caught my eye a little bit. Then I decided to take an environmental science gen ed, and I kind of fell in love with this idea of like tackling environmental issues because it's always been something that I thought about. Um, and so I just started reading more about the major, and I thought, oh, well, this is perfect. It like encompasses everything that I'm interested in, design and um, like finding ways to improve people's lives and just improve society without having any environmental harm.
So when you mentioned that you took the environmental science class and it was something that piqued your interest because you've been thinking about that for a long time,
Yeah.
can you tell that story?
Yeah. So I was just looking at a bunch of different like electives to take, like the general education classes. And I had to do like a natural science, general,
You
what's it
had to
called?
fulfill
General
some
education.
student
I had to fulfill
requirement. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So I was like, what kind of science is going to be not as tough as physics and chemistry and, something that I was like really struggling with in high
Oh,
school. And
man.
so I just chose this environmental science because it's like I never got a chance to take that in high school. And so I just kind of jumped into it, and I found myself really excelling in that class and talking to the professor and just like, putting 150% of my energy into it, even though it's not
Wow.
really part of my major.
Was that
That's
like the environmental science for you? Was that something you had always been interested in, or you just discovered it when you got to University of Illinois?
I just discovered it when I came to the university. I mean, we had it because I was in an international school system called International Baccalaureate.
Hmm.
We had that class in school, and it never seemed appealing to me. I don't know why. I thought it was just going to be about plants, like studying different like biological systems, which I didn't wasn't really interested in at the time. But then when I found out that it tackles like issues like climate change,
Hmm.
um, that's something that I was interested in because ever since I was young, like it was like as simple as picking up people's litter behind them as soon as I see someone like throw a wrapper on the floor, like a
Oh, wow.
plastic bottle. I would be like 5 years old. My mom would watch me just go run and pick up someone's litter and try to throw it in the garbage in front of, throw it in the trash can in front of them, and she just find it funny. So I think it was just part of my
Hmm.
like when I grew up.
So you always thought about it. That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. What about you, Adam? Does this sound like a familiar story to you as well?
Yeah, as a kid, I was in the like environmental club in elementary school and all that. Um, and I certainly had like kept that interest throughout the years growing up, but I wasn't sure how it would translate to like a real world career at that point.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm glad because I didn't come into college in sustainable design either. I began it sophomore year as well.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so I'm glad I like stumbled upon it, um, so that I, had that opportunity to translate the interests I had had as a child into something that like I could actually make a difference with.
Hmm.
Um, so for my like sustainable design story, um, I'm double majoring as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
It started in graphic design and I loved it too much to abandon it.
Hmm.
when I like stumbled upon sustainable design. So when I added the sustainable design like dual major in like April of freshman year to start sophomore year, um it sort of was like a I was tying myself into something that I would have to see like followed through.
Right.
Uh because I love both of them so much, and I want to find a way that I can like meld the two, and that's sort of why I chose to stay in both,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
I could combine them
Do
when
you
I've
see
learned it
opportunities
about
that
both.
you can? Do you see opportunities
Yeah,
for that? Yeah.
I feel like definitely in the uh manner of creating like pieces that raise awareness.
Hmm.
I feel like definitely that could like meld more than other things. But there's also so many like opportunities of combining them that I haven't explored or probably haven't even thought
Well, you're
of.
a junior. You have another year or do you have
Exactly.
2 more years as a double major?
I just have a year.
Oh, good. That'll help
Yeah, I don't have to do
help
extra
your
time
parents.
here.
Well, we have an overachiever with the double major here, and Sadeen who does 150%. So it's a good crew. Let's get into the nitty gritty here of how uh, the education that you're getting is preparing you for after you leave. What are your thoughts about that question?
I would say it's hard to tell, honestly,
Right, you're
'cause
not there yet.
I don't have experience in the big world as like following a career and stuff, but I feel like it is in terms of like the knowledge it's giving me, it is teaching me well. It's giving me like a good like set of like basic skills
Hmm.
and a lot of different things that I can apply to sustainability.
That's good
Um
to hear.
and I feel like I whenever I introduce this major to anybody else, like I'll mention like, oh, I'm dual majoring in graphic design and sustainable design. And they're like, oh, what's sustainable design? And
Yeah.
whenever I introduce it, I always mention like, yeah, it gives me a lot of experience in a lot of different types of topics like architecture, urban planning, industrial design, everything like that. Um, and so I feel like that's definitely one of the strengths of how this major is run here is that it just gives us so many or yeah, it gives us so many like different like types of design skills
A lot
to
of
put into
experiences.
practice. Yeah.
And you're kind of a recruiter, it sounds too, like you're trying to
Yeah, a
get
little
people
bit.
to
I have talked to people like in like landscape architecture
come on over,
and
try this one.
yeah, I'm like, come over, join sustainable design. Yeah.
Yeah. Sadine,
Yeah.
what about you?
I agree. Like, this major really gives us the chance to, dip our toes into um, different design fields. Um, One thing that I really like is that we have the choice to choose because we have to do major electives, right? So
Yeah.
we get to choose what field of design we're interested in. And for me, I'm interested in a lot of different types of design other than product design. So I took a product design class, I took a landscape architecture class, urban uh, planning class, and then like over the years, I would just take more classes from the field of design that interests me.
Hmm.
Um, and I also get the same I have the same interaction with my friends, and they ask me like, "Oh, what's sustainable design?" And
They don't
I'm
know,
like,
huh?
they don't know. I'm like,
Oh no,
it's
that's not
new
a
to
good
me
thing though, right?
too. Yeah, that's not really great, but I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we inform people about it, then it'll become a thing. And I think it's important that it's not sustainable like graphic design or sustainable
Okay.
architectural design. I think it's nice that it encompasses all of these different the fields. Um, because I feel like if you go into the world of design, you should be able to just, adapt to any like firm or any company's needs. Because at the end of the day, design is about a couple of similar things, which is kind of addressing the needs of, say, a system, a person, a society, or the
Mm.
environment, and knowing how to communicate that message effectively, right? So, I think it's important that sustainability is part of this process, because obviously we have to think about the future generations and think about how we could restore what we've already kind of damaged in terms of the environment and the people even.
Yeah, that was going to be
Yeah.
another question I asked you guys in that kind of a follow up here. There's not like a sustainable architecture major. It's not
Yeah.
sustainable. And it seems like you prefer it not to be.
Going along with what Sadeen was saying, um, I would agree that like all types of design are connected by their nature. And I feel like that's what makes it important not to separate them, is because this idea of like, putting into practice like sustainability and things that promote it um are things that can be applied to all types of design.
Yeah.
Like with that, it's more of a mindset when designing than something specific in each
Exactly.
different type of design. Like I feel like sustainable design gives a good like approach to how we like
Hmm.
look at a design problem and how we want to solve it. And that can be applied to any different type of design major, from like architecture to urban planning to just graphic design as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like it's really about designing your mindset for sustainability. But that becomes a problem once we start applying for jobs. I mean, I'm a senior, and like, what
Yeah.
do I write on my
Yeah.
resume? Is like, am I an architect? Do I apply for architecture firms? Because they're looking for architects, they're looking for
Hmm.
urban planners. They're not looking for sustainable designers, right? So what do you? That's, I think, one improvement. I think this major needs is some specificity towards like the last year, I guess.
You can
If
focus
I
on
were,
something.
yeah, I feel like it should give you the chance to like specialize in one or two forms of design, because that'll make it easier for like the world we live in, when we're applying for jobs.
Yeah.
Um,
In the
so like
big
maybe.
world, which was
Mhm.
Adam said that, and I like that, the big world. A lot of people say, and when you get to the real world, well, you guys are already in the real world, right?
That's
You're,
true.
you're dealing with like a bunch of issues as students. That's real, but I like the
Yeah.
big world. That's
Hmm.
a good one, Adam. Did you come up with
Yeah, I'm gonna
that?
start using that.
Yeah, I came up with that on the spot, so I'm pretty proud of
Good
it.
job. No, Sadine, I hear your point there that what do you do? You're a sustainable design major, you dabble in a lot of things. Now someone wants you to do something specific. How you do that? Adam, are you feeling, well, Adam's a graphic design major too,
Yeah,
so he's going to be set. So
yeah.
unless he wants to be an architect. So
Well,
no.
honestly, I feel like if I was in like sustainable design only, and a year from now in Sadine's boat, um, I would like relate to that more.
Hmm.
But I can definitely feel or see how going into the big world, as I mentioned before,
Yes.
with such a like wide range of skills from this major, but no specific like concentration, how that can almost feel trapping,
Hmm.
because like wherever you end up, you don't want to feel like you only have to do this certain
Yeah,
skill.
yeah.
Like it's nice. That's one of the nice things about how it's approached at U of I is like it gives us just that possibility to do this huge range of skills and design. And hopefully wherever we end up, or, I guess if we just go along and do our own thing, um, hopefully we're able to still follow like that same wide range.
Yeah.
Um, because I feel like approaching stuff with all of this in mind is what will really help like solve design problems thoroughly. Like
Yeah.
oftentimes different concentrations are needed to like complete a single project in like its entirety. So I
Yes.
feel like having all of that in our brains helps us be better
Yeah.
designer,
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that you've mentioned that because I realized in our sustainable design classes where it's just purely sustainable design, like the one we're taking with Eric, um,
Yes.
it's interesting to see people from different backgrounds of design. Like I'd be working on a project with with Adam, and he's good at graphic design, and then meanwhile I have some product design. I think I have a product design background. Um, and I think it's very applicable to the to the big world.
The
Sorry.
big world.
Yeah, because when you're in these design firms or like any company that you decide to work at, it's not just you're working with a bunch of architects. You're working with people from different fields, and you have to learn to how to adapt to them. Um, so I think yeah, that was a very good point that you brought up.
Yeah. Well, your generation is
Thank
definitely
you.
changing the workplace a lot.
Yeah,
And I
Good.
wonder, based on what you just said, if this idea of this being able to, from a design perspective, get involved with a lot of things could also change the big world design profession too. So you could be the leaders in this movement, right?
Yeah, I feel like oftentimes, um, and it could be just because I haven't done much research, but I feel like oftentimes when I think of like going into the big world as a designer, um, the most viable path is that of into corporate America.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't necessarily want to do that
Hmm.
because I feel like that'll make me feel trapped. And I want to go somewhere where I feel like I can make change.
Hmm.
So hopefully our generation does do its job of, changing up the workplace a bit, giving everybody a bit more like power to make good change.
Yeah. I hope so
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of corporate America, I also think about that. Like, do I want to be part of the change in a small company where like a startup that is comfortable for me, or do I want to be part of the big companies that actually are not? I don't want to say they're the cause of climate change, but they have definitely like been part of
Well, I think they were
the
part of it.
I mean, um but that's the thing with, let's say we're talking about oil companies. Obviously, a hundred oil companies are in charge of 70% of the global emissions. Um, but then again, these 100 companies are the reason why in the industrial revolution we've developed so quickly and
True.
in such an advanced way. So I think the discussion is about like whether they want to join us in shifting to say renewable energy, or whether we can just shut down the factories, which I think is not really an option,
Right.
because then you know this is the way the world works now. Like
Yeah.
it's about who can produce quicker and more efficiently, and it's about the money making machine. So I think what's important is knowing how to, personally, I would want to be part of these big companies to influence this change, from starting from the top.
Yeah. From within.
Yeah, which is gonna be tough because
Yeah.
even just working on something as small as an organization in this university, where I was working with architects, I found it really difficult to convince them of my sustainable design
Really? That's also
methods.
not good.
Yeah,
That's also
yeah, because everyone, everyone. studies and like excels in their field, and they think that sometimes they think this is the only way to do it and the right way to do it.
Hmm.
So it's hard to come in with like a radical solution. So I think that's very important. I think
Yeah.
that the major should prepare us for it. It's knowing how to deal with people who kind of oppose your views, or um, you know, it's gonna be tough jumping in and try to convince people of something that they've been working on for the past, say, 30, 40 years, you know?
Right. Like your older bosses are kind of stuck in their ways, and you
Exactly.
come here and say, "You're doing it wrong." And they say,
Yeah.
"What do you know?" Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a
Yeah,
good thing to note there about what design schools, maybe in general, but specifically your major, could help with better. And that's maybe it's like this professional practice ethics. I mean, you do have an
Mhm.
ethics class that you're in with me, so that's
Yeah.
something to continue to work on there. Adam, you were going to
Yeah.
say something.
um, I definitely see how the path you're like planning to choose can make change. Um, because it's hard to make bigger companies and corporations actually make change if you're not in them or regulating them.
Right.
And so I wanna, like, say, like, keep going on that path because I can see you making a difference,
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. It's gonna be a
but
tough one, and I think
Yeah.
you need to be persistent with it, but
You're
yeah,
going to need Adam as support,
gonna need
right?
yeah.
He's going to be outside and you're going to be inside, and
true.
you're gonna help each other, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's, in all seriousness, I think you're both right. We need
yeah.
people in both situations,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and
sorta
while
like
working
pulling
together.
from both ends type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's very tempting for me to just because I've always been interested in like entrepreneurship and starting my own thing and doing things my own way.
Yeah.
But then it's like I chose to jump into this major and I want to make an impact. So what do I think is the way that I can contribute to making this change? And I think it's addressing the big companies, even though
Hmm.
I really maybe down the line I could start my own thing, but for now I think that's what I should be doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Adam can like, start going on that path before me and like building, this important culture of small businesses,
True,
which I
and
think is, yeah,
hopefully by the time you get there, more of the generation will have joined in.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And I wonder about that because you mentioned how, well, Adam's recruiting because people didn't know about it, and
Yeah.
Sadeen's having trouble with architects. That leads me to kind of yeah, leads me to a kind of a follow up to that. And that, do you should we even have a sustainable design major, and instead of maybe not having it, just that sustainability is foundational in no matter what design that you're doing? What do you think about that as an idea?
I think in, like, how it's being introduced to the world right now and, like, how important sustainability is becoming, um, when that wasn't the case in the past, I feel like this sustainable design major is, like, a good, like, stepping stone to that, to creating, like, a fundamental sustainability practice within all of design. Um, because I don't think it would have caught on to as many students if it was like I don't think it would have changed students' mindsets as much if it had just been instated as like a principle of
Got
every
it.
type of design. Like I feel like there needs to be that outright thing saying like, "Oh, here's sustainable design. Here's how you can change your mindset to think about it."
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like in the future that would definitely be
Yeah.
like very helpful to just, say sustainability is like a part of every type of design, but this
Right.
Mhm.
is a good like middle ground.
Transition.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. The thing is, after being in this major and like learning about all of the different concepts, it makes me think like, is sustainability really a trend now? Is it, or is it something that's been happening? I mean, we learn about um, the way that like native people, you know, their systems were sustainable, and that was you know hundreds of years ago, and so it makes me think like I feel like this sustainable design major kind of opens up the doors to show people that it's not a trend. It's not something that,
Right.
it's just a phase that we're going through. And I think it's important, maybe down the line to make it part of every major, not just
Hmm.
design majors, to avoid having like companies greenwash and hop on this like green trend, So I think having a major specific to like sustainable design is important to show, like how Adam said, like to show people, give them a stepping stone to put it out there and like really um dive deep into the different concepts and how we could apply them in different fields.
Got it. Like you both mentioned that this is maybe something in the future should happen. What do you think could be like the catalyst to finally, make this more of like embedded in everything? Obviously, the major that you're in could be an additional help to that. Could climate change be that catalyst? What do you think?
Hmm. Interesting question.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
came out
I
of
don't
nowhere.
think, yeah. I don't think there's one catalyst. I think it's just once people start feeling the effects of climate change, on a like day-to-day basis, or not just climate change, like if they feel like social problems are becoming more evident in their lives, with the idea of sustainability being put out there, I think that that'll slowly start to change the way that we do things. I don't think it's going to be you know, one day you wake up and everyone's just, not
It's utopia. Welcome.
recycling and doing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
I Yeah, that is a hard question, but I would agree with Sadine that like when climate change like begins affecting even more people than it already does, I feel like that might have to be the catalyst at this point.
Hmm.
Um, because we've had so many chances before this to, like go and make that like fundamental shift. Um, but society just hasn't. Um,
Right.
and I feel like once it like gets to, of course, this would not be the ideal, but once it
Right.
it probably will get to like a more severe point, um, and people will then like really like understand like, oh, we need to do something about this. Um, and given I don't think that a lot of like the population of the US or of the world, I don't think they're necessarily against it. I think a lot of people just don't know what to do about it or how to like further encourage principles of sustainability.
Hmm.
Um, like we're always told, like as individuals, like the like the standard, like, oh, do your part, recycling, take shorter showers,
Bike to
uh
school.
yeah, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, yeah, like that makes a little bit of a difference as individuals. But unless everybody does it, or unless there is a fundamental shift to how things work, those little things
Yeah.
aren't gonna make as much of a difference. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people like realize that and they get a little bit like burnt out. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the right word, but they're like, this isn't really like doing much. Like,
Right.
Mhm.
why should I even be doing it if these huge oil and coal companies are gonna like keep doing their stuff and just like
Yeah.
cancel mine out 10,000 fold?
Yes.
So I think giving like that that climate crisis coming to a more severe point is what might have to be the catalyst for there to be that like fundamental shift for society and for like people to view sustainability.
Yeah. And especially when like these big companies are the ones who have introduced the idea of a carbon footprint and which is kind of counterintuitive because you wouldn't expect a company that's causing the problem to find like to blame you for their
Yeah.
problems and like you know tell you oh do, if you can reduce your carbon footprint by recycling then we can still go on and do what we're doing and you'll
Exactly.
live
Right,
a
right.
happy life and
Yeah.
we'll survive
Yeah.
um
Yeah, the oil
and
companies came up with that term carbon footprint probably for
ex-
that reason, right? Blame
exactly
blame us and then, hey, we can drill for more oil if you
Yeah.
reduce your
yeah.
carbon footprint.
Now, I think it's important to learn how to live sustainably just for the future and to,
Agreed. Yeah.
because obviously our resources are limited, but I don't think that's something we should be worrying about just yet. But at the same time, some change is better than no change. And
That's
so
true.
it puts us in this limbo of like, how do we you know, try to be part of this uh, movement of change and not worry? I don't know how to say it, but like, um, yeah, so like how could we be part of this change without being anxious about it all the time because
Mhm.
we keep seeing these statistics online and it gets exhausting like Adam said. Um and so yeah, I think we have to
Thing
address
gives you
the big
anxiety.
problem. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe with like maybe it's the communication of things. So biking to school to reduce your carbon footprint, maybe that's not what's being said to get more people to do it. It's more of bike to work to get bigger, stronger legs, right? Or
Yeah.
improve your cardiovascular system to live longer.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's important to kind of tell the story of sustainability in the sense that when you're being sustainable, it's it's kind of it's better for you because
Yeah.
um like let's say you install solar panels in your house, it's going to be cheaper for you. That's I feel like the way to address the problems now because I'm not going to lie, the majority of people who I talk to about sustainability, they're like, yeah, we think we should be sustainable, but then at the end of the day, people are, you know, they care about themselves first
Right,
before
right.
thinking about things that they can't feel on a daily basis, unless obviously you're in a vulnerable community, and that's
Yeah.
where I think the people in vulnerable communities are the ones who want to protest against this harder than anyone else, right? So I think it's tough to be somewhere and not really feel the effects and still want to commit to this change. Um, so I think if you're telling the story as, oh, this is going to be better for you, it's going to be cheaper for you to live this way, then that's when once they start, listening and kind of applying these different systems in their lives.
Yeah, no one wants to take a 30-second cold shower, right?
Yeah.
They want
I mean, I don't, and I'm a sustainable designer,
Right,
and
right.
people
I
watch
mean,
me
no
do
one
things.
does. No one does. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Neither do I.
yeah, no. I mean, do you feel like the concept, or not even the concept, but the reality of climate change is being discussed enough in your classes? I mean, you are in sustainable design. I assume that comes up, but I don't know, 100% no.
I feel like it's being discussed extensively in a lot of my sustainable design classes. But as Sadeen mentioned, it's sort of hard to like really understand just how bad it is
Yeah.
without being affected by it firsthand.
Right.
Um, and the like classes in sustainable design like allow us to at least get that like base knowledge of what's going on in the world, what's especially going wrong, and what are people like not doing in the best way they can, and how can we fix that. um it definitely gives us the knowledge to approach that, um but without feeling like like firsthand the effects of climate change, because we are like so lucky to live like in a community where we, don't feel them.
Right.
Uh, I feel like it's hard to know exactly how you want to approach it. Like people who have been affected by uh this is a more like general just like idea. People who have been affected by something and like when it's part of a bigger thing, they know they want to approach that specific part of it that's affecting them.
Yeah.
Um Whereas it's definitely like intimidating to not know which part of it to stab. Um
Hmm.
because it's just such a huge issue with so many different factors. Um, but I'm often like soothed by the fact that like there is so many people in the world and in our generation, and hopefully other people in our generation will want to follow that same like path of changing like the world's mindset about sustainability. So if we all just take like a little chunk of like the sustainability issue and like work
Hmm.
on it ourselves, put it back together, like I feel like that'll be a lot more successful than one individual trying to take on the whole
Right.
thing by themselves.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. Um, and I think a lot of my classes that aren't the sustainable, like aren't sustainable design classes, they do address sustainability in different ways, some more than others. I think the problem with some classes is that they include sustainability as an add-on or like
Hmm.
as a subtopic in a module. And I think like some criteria should be changed to kind of include sustainability in all the different aspects of a syllabus or like any class. Um, Also, for sustainable design, I one of my electives I chose to do what was it? Environmental sociology, and that was not part of the major elective list. But I think it's important to take classes like this, like that deal with the psychology of humans and society as a whole.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I feel like it's it's nice to see that other majors like sociology are tackling these issues and even have an entire class dedicated to environmental issues and sustainability. Uh, yeah, I think it should be part of every major, and
Yeah. When you raise,
it's starting. It's we're getting there.
we're getting
Yeah.
there. We need to get there faster, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to add on to what you said, Sadine, about how like it's sort of treated as an add-on in some of the classes that we take.
Mhm.
Um, because it made me think of like this instance, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Um, Me and a friend, well, for context, this is an architecture course that I'm
I
talking
I
about.
had a feeling you were going to talk about
Okay, the
that.
the infamous architecture course.
Yeah.
I'm not dissing them. They do good stuff. They do hard work. Um,
Yes, I
but me and a friend in sustainable design, we're in like the same group in that class. Um, and some I think the project was to like select materials that might be good for like a space that they had shown an image of, and we had to go on this site and select materials that would be good as an alternative
Hmm.
to the ones shown in the picture. Um, and me and my friend in sustainable design, we tried to go for the ones that were like the best for the environment. Had the least amount of chemicals, the least amount of treating, um, and ones that would just like overall be a better sustainable choice. And then we had to present them to the group. And my friend and I, we present these things and we see like the other students who aren't in sustainable design. I think they're in architecture. um, choose more the materials for their properties and their properties alone,
Yeah.
not
And their
for how
aesthetic
they were like
properties.
made or
How they
constructed.
look.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And then after the class, I was talking with my friend, and we were both discussing like I didn't realize how much sustainable design has like changed our mindsets, like how we look at materials in architecture and like want to apply this sustainability to every portion of things we do.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and on the like flip side, we didn't realize how much it didn't play a role in some other people's minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like sort of like always there. Like I'm always trying to like factor sustainability into every like decision I make. Um,
Yeah.
and it was sort of like crazy for me to see because I'm used to like being in like sustainable design classes where everybody's
Right.
in
Right.
sustainable design.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Crazy
everyone's
for
on the
me to
same page
see,
there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like how an individual can approach things without it in their head. And I feel like that's also a good like reminder as to how the big world will be.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
there will be a lot of people that like don't give an ounce of thought to sustainability.
Yeah.
Um, and we're just gonna have to like, make them think about it or, go ahead and do the things ourselves. So
That's
either way,
true.
we're gonna,
Just keep on doing what
make
you're doing
changes.
and doing it
Yeah.
better. And I wonder, you raise a really good point in that you two are lucky you're in a sustainable design degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not all, I guess, let's say you chose a different university to go to, likely it doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you get like architects, other designers from different disciplines to think about sustainability without it just being like a little add-on in a course? It's not foundational yet. Maybe there's a required sustainable design course that everyone has to take. I don't know. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
I think that's one of the most important things that we should be doing is knowing how to kind of integrate the idea of sustainability and fits different people's mindsets. And I think a course will definitely help if it's like every person entering into this university should take a sustainability course. But personally, when I've just taken one course and forgotten about it, I feel like it doesn't really.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
That math
Like
class,
there's a lot of
I
courses I
forget
don't remember
calculus now.
exactly. I've been like reading an article for one class last week and then forgetting it completely to this
True.
day, so I think it should also be part of the training for professors, not
Oh
just
yeah,
like the way that they talk to their students, right?
true.
Um, because at the time, like currently, for example, in my architecture class, they do mention a lot about like, oh, we have to design for people and like we have to think about our surrounding environment and how this uh artifact will fit into the site. And that's important, but I don't think they mention that enough. I
Mm,
think they're more concerned about how it looks aesthetically in
yeah,
around in that environment rather than what impact it has. Even though they mention it every time,
yeah,
it's like, oh, you have to put these human size, like the scale figures in this space, but then these scale figures will probably not be able to comfortably be in this
yeah.
space, not just fit like the dimension. It's not just about the dimension; it's also about the different senses. How you feel in this space, how what you can hear, what you can touch, what you can smell. I think those things are very important to mention in let's say
Mm,
an architecture class, which they do in another class that I'm taking, but not in other architecture classes.
mhm.
You know.
Yeah, many years ago, I was on this panel. I was invited to be on this panel, and the topic was, "Is sustainability killing architecture?" And their
Oh
point,
my
yeah,
gosh.
and the opposing sort of side to mine was arguing that it is because it's limiting our creative, what
Hmm.
we can do beauty wise, because the material choices are more limited, or you have to have energy efficiency
I've
and
seen like
everything.
so many different pieces of architecture that are both sustainable and beautiful. So I feel like it's
Yeah.
not limiting. Like I was gonna bring that up when Sadeen was talking. Um this relates more to urban planning, but it still relates to the idea of like sustainable projects. Um like the projects that were shown in urban planning class I took last year were some of like the coolest projects I had seen.
Hmm.
Um just for various reasons, like, oh, they looked very pleasing aesthetically, or they, you know, as Sadine was also saying, um, they kept in mind how humans would interact with the space. But like above all that, they were still sustainable.
Hmm.
They were still like keeping in mind the environment in their design, like their inherent design. Um, so I feel like if anything, sustainability isn't like designing with nature is not limiting. I think it's in a way almost allows you to amplify what points you want to get across because it gives you just like that stage for like going in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Like having design or sustainable design at the core of something just allows you to like design it in a lot of different ways that still speak to sustainability, to nature, and to humans, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I kind of view it as like it's not limiting, it's just new
Yeah.
ish to many people, and so there's exciting opportunities there that haven't been explored, and embrace that part of it based on like how different it is from how you're used to design.
This is gonna be a weird analogy, but I hope it will get my point across.
Okay.
Uh, whenever people started wearing clothes, they probably thought those were limiting. But
Yeah.
look at us now, look at fashion runways, look at all
Yeah, I
that.
know.
Like, people have realized, like, oh, you can do so much with an outfit or with how you present yourself. But when that first came along, people were probably like, no, like, I don't want to wear this. It like feels limiting. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's the analogy I chose. And I feel like that gets it along pretty well.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Also, I think what's important is we show people that the sustainable path is like if you show people the graphs and you kind of give them a realistic approach to addressing these issues or not making it sound like an issue or something that, oh, I'm here as a sustainability police trying to tell you what materials to use and what materials not to use. I think it's recognizing like or trying to decouple environmental degradation from economic and societal growth
Mhm.
and showing them how, like, if you look at the graphs, eventually this economic growth isn't gonna
Like it'll
it's
work.
not gonna keep
Yeah.
going, it's not gonna keep going up because of the limited resources that we have. So showing them that you could, if you kind of decouple these two trends of environmental degradation, you can still have it go up, because
Right.
these resources will just keep on going for hundreds of years, and like others the if we keep exploiting them, they won't be there anymore. So
Yeah, I think this is the strategy you need, Sadine, when you're working
Mhm.
inside these big companies. Like you need to talk money to them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the way that they're gonna listen to you, right? This is
Hmm.
what people want for their own
That's true.
personal lives.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it's also important when approaching other people about like the sustainable mindset that we've been talking about to be like, for lack of a better word, like friendly about it. Like
Yeah.
it isn't for many of them, it isn't their fault that they have not
Mhm,
been exposed to inherent sustainability. Um,
mhm.
like the architecture major I was talking about in the class. Um, like I'm not dissing them. It's like they haven't been exposed to it in their major, and
Mhm.
that's
Exactly.
why they don't approach it that way. It's
Mhm.
Yeah.
not like it's not like a person is born with like sustainability in their heart, although
Yeah.
it's
You
like
two were,
more or
it
less
seems.
we all are,
Yeah.
like we all
Yeah.
should be. Um, but like that's the important part of just like getting everybody in that sustainable mindset and just
Yeah.
being like like welcoming and friendly about it, not like
Mhm.
scolding, not like, "Oh, you didn't know this beforehand, how dare you?" It's more like
Yeah.
you weren't exposed to it before, like join us in this
Mhm.
uh like movement for like treating the world better.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to show them that, like, we aren't perfect either. When
Mhm.
I hang out with my friends and
Oh,
they see me
definitely
like,
not.
"Oh, drink from a plastic water bottle," they're like, "Oh, aren't you into
Yeah. How
sustainability?
dare
And
you?
what's that about?" You know?
Yeah.
I think showing them that it's not an intimidating thing to be sustainable, that kind of
Mhm.
makes it easier for them to make this shift. Um, yeah, I think it's just
Yeah, we're not
knowing how to
perfect.
talk to speak. We're not perfect, not at
No, no.
all.
I remember going to a meeting about sustainability and I made my coffee at home and I got it in my little travel mug and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so late." And I rush off and I forget it. And so I'm
Oh,
like falling asleep and I pick up at the coffee shop next door to the meeting coffee and I come in with a disposable cup and they're just like they're shaming me for it and I'm like,
Yeah.
just I forgot, I made it. I goofed up. Yeah, we're not perfect.
where I drive my car for a long time, I'm like, Adam, this is not you. Like, you
Hmm.
can't be doing this. But like, a lot of times I don't have like any other option. Like, if I'm like
Yeah.
driving home for the weekend, um, that's like the most like the way that's been given to me to get home.
Hmm.
Um, and like at this point, there isn't any other viable option to
Mhm.
like a lot of our like everyday decisions
Yeah.
that aren't the most sustainable. And that
Mhm.
brings it back to what I was saying before about like a lot of the world isn't against it. They just don't know what they can do better.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
or they just don't have the option to do better because overall society has not given them that option.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the important part to like emphasize is that we need to make it like
Easier.
inherent in society as well so
Yeah.
people can just like naturally follow that.
Yeah. Exactly. And like, um, it was interesting to see how, like, Eric, when you brought it up, um, about, it was convenient for you to go buy a coffee. So
Yeah.
I think what we should be working on as designers is making sustainability convenient, right? So
Yeah.
maybe places could be only like bulk. You can only go to a grocery store and get your own. If maybe it should be part of car designs to have a space for refillable jars, for example, and then you go to a store and you have to just take out your jar and refill it with whatever you need. You know what I mean? So if it's convenient, if the world is designed to be convenient and adaptable to the way that we live now, I think that'll make it easier for people to like
Mm.
hop on this bandwagon and like,
Yeah. The system needs to change so Adam doesn't have to
yeah,
drive his car and
exactly.
it's easy to make a good
Yeah.
decision, basically.
I feel like
Yeah,
Sadine, I feel like there are not in the mainstream, but there are a couple of places that are like that.
but there,
Like I
yeah,
I feel like have you been to the Common Ground Food Cooperative here in Urbana?
no, I personally am not.
Uh so it's a food cooperative, which on its own great. Um, but that aside, they have like a whole aisle of different mixed things that you can like bring in your own container and fill.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I feel like if that were to become more mainstream, that would definitely
Yeah.
be a step in the right direction in that field. Of course,
Mhm.
there's like a
Yeah.
lot more to be done, but like it's little things like that a lot of people use
Yeah, and making it
will help
cheaper, I
make that
think.
Yeah.
difference. Yeah,
Cost.
true.
When people see that it's cheaper, then they'll go out of their ways to do it. But if it's
True.
marketed towards the niche, sustainable people who can afford to be sustainable, then not everyone is going
And
to
only
want
a
to do
few
it.
people do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Um,
there's a lot
even
to
just
be done, right?
Mhm.
But we're running out of time on this show. And
Yeah.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to be in my shoes, not as a podcast host, but as a design educator. And if you were a design educator and you were teaching a class or you were just teaching in general, what would you do to sort of address all the things we've been talking about today? What would you assign? Um, how would you be more helpful in helping address the climate crisis through the design classroom?
Yeah, I thought about this one a lot. I think one important thing is knowing how to talk about it. And one thing we used to do in my high school is in my geography class, for example, we used to hold the teacher used to host like debates where one side of the classroom would be pro something and then the other would be against.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have to learn, let's say you're an oil company, you have to learn how to support oil and like talk from their perspective and have that debate. I feel like that's very important to kind of practice before going into the big world. Um, so yeah, that's something I'd implement, like just more debates and more group work where there's this and knowing how to apply your knowledge into just interacting with people once you go out there, once you
Yeah.
graduate.
I I feel like given that these students you take in are already interested in sustainability, um, the best thing you can do is to just give them knowledge and experience. Um, like I feel like additional stuff said about uh like why sustainability is important and stuff like that is everything like we already know.
Mm.
And something I found very helpful, especially in my classes this semester, is I've just gotten a lot more like background knowledge on uh like efforts of sustainability and how it's gone right in the past and how it's gone wrong. Um and it's been especially interesting to learn about like the ethics of design. Because that is not something I would have like thought of myself. It's just like keeping in mind every influence of a design I make. So I feel like an educator, like their the best thing they can do for their students is to give them like knowledge, experience, and if there's any additional puzzle pieces in that mindset that we haven't gotten yet, to just like like put those pieces in.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Good analogy there. So,
Thank
Dean
you.
and Adam, it's been a pleasure talking to you on the show.
Yeah,
And it's been a really good conversation. I've learned some things. So,
Me
thank you for
too.
that.
thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having us.
And look for both Sadeen and Adam on LinkedIn. Connect with them. Hire them both. Let
Please.
them bring their sustainability knowledge to your company or your organization.
Mhm. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Eric.
This podcast is written, produced, and engineered by me. Designed by Bashul Rashik and Mark O'Brien. With social media strategy by Michelle Wynn. Music by Casual Motive. Next time on Climify, we'll have a special episode hosted by Mark O'Brien. while I take the week off. Expect even more thoughts about design education from his students at CCA in San Francisco. Until then, keep up the good work.
Thanks for listening to Climify. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. To catch all the latest on Climify, you can follow us on Instagram at Climify Podcast. Climify is part of Climate Designers. Learn more at climatedesigners.org/edu.